Hey everybody, welcome back. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Today I have rescaped, redone, gutted a 3.5 gallon tank.
And what's crazy is this 3.5 gallon tank, it really wasn't up and running that long. It was on the nano wall, and it's a 3.5 gallon long. So this tank is about as long, or maybe even a little bit longer. I'm looking over there because it's where it is. It's about as long, or maybe a little bit longer than a 10 gallon. So that's kind of interesting. Now, I really liked this tank when you first set it up, and I liked the tank the entire time. It was one of my favorite tanks on your wall. So tell us a little bit about what you did with it originally, and what you liked, what you didn't like about it, and why it's different now.
Well, it was for a desktop. It was supposed to be upstairs. I liked it. It was meant to be very simple. I just used actually gravel, which is large for a small tank, but I wanted a certain color scheme. I wanted simple, and then I used like three was it Dragonstone? I think so. And we had some guppies in there. I liked it. I meant for it to be upstairs without a backing. There was no room to plug it in, etc., etc., so it had to come down on the nano wall. And he said, "Oh, I love this tank. It's great. Don't touch it. Don't touch it." And I'd be looking at it, and he'd be like, "Don't touch it. Don't change it."
It was one of my favorite tanks on the nano wall.
So of course I changed it.
Yep, but there was a good reason, and the reason was, once again, Flip Aquatics reached out to us, and the last time they were here, we were talking about some of our favorite fish, and you have a favorite fish, which we're not going to reveal just yet. But it is on her bucket list of fish, and when they called and said, "Hey, we've got these. We actually have a pair. Do you want them?"
I screamed.
We jumped on it right away. So again, Flip Aquatics is a channel sponsor. We thank them very much for sponsoring Primetime Aquatics. Check them out.
Flip Aquatics.
Check them out in the description below. They've got all kinds of stuff: cool shrimp, plants, nano fish, pretty much everything that's nano. That is the place to go. So let's take a look at this new tank.
This worked out well because after I changed the scape, and you didn't like it anyways, and we moved the guppies over to a different tank, which they're having a ball with all their new friends.
And I want to be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but one of the things that I want to make clear in our fish room is we don't tend to cycle through fish just to do it. So when we move fish, we don't get rid of them, we basically keep them. So the guppies that were in that tank wound up in the 29 gallon.
With a couple other guppies.
With a couple other guppies. So yeah, we tend not to really cycle through fish just for the sake of doing it. So we don't, if you look at our fish room tours, you will see, yeah, they've got a bunch of community tanks that are basically retirement tanks for fish that were once in a habitat. Now they've gotten a little bit older. That's just how we kind of do things. Now, this tank that you set up is different than the
very
original.
Different. And it was all based on making the best home for my bucket list fish, which remember when you had one, and I would stalk him. I could never see him because the tank was too big. Now I have a pair.
And the pair of
Scarlet Baddis.
Yeah.
They're so tiny.
And what's interesting
so
about
cute.
the Scarlet Baddis is often when you go to a store, or you're checking them out online, the males are super, super common because that's what sells. They've got the really pretty red with the blue stripes and the blue iridescence to their fins. The females are far more difficult to find because they're not as colorful, but they have really great personality. So the fact that we've got a pair, this I think is probably, you were talking about breeding bettas, and those bettas need to get a little bit older to do that, but this very well may turn into your first breeding project, perhaps, provided that our fish are happy, healthy, and live long and prosper.
Yeah. Oh, they're so cute. If you've ever seen them, they're like a half an inch.
Well, they're seeing them.
They're
seeing them on the video.
But I mean, if you know about them, they're a small fish and they are adorable.
So this 3.5 gallon, because it is a 3.5 long, it is a perfectly appropriate size for, and that's all we have in this tank is a pair of Scarlet Baddis. And is there a mystery snail in there yet?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet. So tell us about what you did with the tank briefly. Like, here's what I did, what the idea was.
Well, I had found, I've had a piece of spiderwood in the garage that I found it, and I was like, "Oh, you look like a tree. I love you. I'm gonna have to put this in a long, skinny tank." Then when this one opened up, I was like, "Oh wait, this is gonna be perfect." Yeah, it didn't work out so well. It wasn't behaving. It just didn't work. It was not, up until 11 o'clock at night, it was not behaving. Anyways, went back into the garage, and I found some sweet, another piece. It was the weirdest shape, but it was perfect for that one. It's shaped like an eye, like a big long eye. It had like arms like this. And I was like, oh yeah, I hope you fit. And it did. And the tree one fit behind it. Boy, was I excited. And it just made, I just love it. I just really love it. I have to tweak it a little bit and everything, but it actually helped to create 2 different zones with kind of like a little path in between that, you know, goes to wherever, you know, you're like, where does that go? And since I switched that and created they're like swimming all over the place and look really happy.
So when you think about the Aquascape, this really is about the fish. It's nice, and I've mentioned this before, if it's possible, if you know what you're going to be keeping, it's great to have that mapped out, because that is going to allow you to determine how you're going to situate your tank, what decorations you're going to use. Is it wood, is it rocks, is it live plants, type of background. And for Scarlet Batis, what I have found is they are more comfortable in a tank that has a darker substrate and a darker background, especially the males. If you really want to see that great color, give it a darker environment, and those colors are really going to shine. But they tend to be shy. So, wow, tinfoil barbs just went crazy.
Sheesh.
So they tend to be shy, and what you want to be able to do is give them hiding places. But if you load your tank up super heavily with a lot of cover, you might not see them. And if they're in a larger tank and there's more active fish, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they're going to be a little bit more reclusive and not come out as much. So here we've got this 3.5 gallon with a large viewing window with decent amount of plants and rocks and wood, enough for them to feel comfortable, but then also enough for them to come out and we can actually see them given the size of the tank.
Can I talk about the plants now?
You can talk about the plants.
I used Crips and Anubias. That's really it. I'm probably going to be throwing in some smaller, kind of like floating plants to give them enough cover, but I stationed everything so that even if they're hiding, which they do, I can still see them, but they're still going to be kind of covered up. And as a note, he is super hyper and really, he's very skittish, but she is not.
Yeah, very different personality between the male and female.
She could care less if your hand's next to her or if there's a big rock coming towards her. She's just like, it's whatever.
So one of the interesting things, if you look at this tank, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, I've talked about this before. I did a video on why fish hide. I'll put that in the upper right hand corner as well as in the description below. But I talked about one of the reasons why some fish will hide is the environment is too bright. If you think about what we do in an aquarium, often the lights are far brighter than what you would normally find in nature. So this tank is something that I think is cool because you see the light is only on one side of the tank, and that's where all the Crips are, and then the Anubias are on the little bit darker side. But I think that's a really important feature for some fish to be able to get out of that light, go to an area where it's a little bit darker, but the lights aren't completely shut off so they can't see, but to have that option to go from the light area to a darker area. And it's something I think as we continue to do more aquascapes in our fish room, we may incorporate that into other tanks as well, because I just think it provides a lot of benefit.
Including a dark side to each tank. I like that.
Yeah,
Dark
not
side.
completely dark where you can't see the fish, but a place where there is rest for the fish if they want to get away from the brightness.
And a good spot to put your Anubias because it's kind of a low light plant to begin with.
Yeah.
It looks very cozy in that dark
It does,
side.
and it's going to do well there. So that is the tank.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and meeting our 2 newest little members. If you've noticed, I haven't named them yet, so I'm still working on that. But we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.